So today we are going to be breaking down Horizon Forbidden West. Again, spoilers ahead if you haven't finished the game. Hey everyone, welcome back to the rollout here on That Hashtag Show. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
A lot of people have been talking about the game. You know, obviously it got delayed a little bit because of COVID, but I think the delays were good because what they ended up putting out was a pretty phenomenal game. With some new features, some features that could revolutionize the game industry, and really make it stand out from a lot of other AAA games that are out now that are kind of similar RPG-esque type games.
Right. With this game, like a lot of people were talking about that they were worried it was going to suffer some like from sequel syndrome. And for me, I mean, I've been playing through it. I haven't finished it yet. But I've been playing through that game pretty hard. I'm a completionist, so
oh yeah, same. I'm like every side quest must be done before.
Exactly. Every scrap of paper must be found.
Right.
So I haven't finished the game yet, but I've been really enjoying it. I do not think that it particularly suffers from sequel syndrome. It actually is very clever how it works because the first game, Zero Dawn, is almost like an introduction to the larger issues at hand in Forbidden West. And the issues at hand are far much larger as opposed to Zero Dawn as far as the threat that you have to face. And for this show, we're going to focus specifically on play style and the game mechanics.
Because they made quite a few updates to improve upon the previous game, and also to, like you said, so you don't get, sequel fatigue. They change things up enough that, the game style is refreshingly new, but still similar enough that you don't feel like you're having to relearn everything.
Right. There is this game. I really love this game's game mechanics because it does two things very well. It already builds off of its original game mechanics so that it rewards people who have played the first game and really enjoyed those mechanics and that play style. I have played a lot of Zero Dawn, and I have my own way about going about things, and I have, mastered my own style of playing that game. And going into this game, I have found that I can do the same thing. A lot of what I have learned and built on can also be used in this game very well. But I'm also challenged, which is the second thing, I'm also challenged by the updates that they put into it. And it also seems like they have been listening to people's suggestions or qualms about the mechanics of the first game, such as the climbing, the swimming, and they have added on to that in a very and they didn't do it in a crappy way either. They did it in a very smart way, which I very much appreciate.
And a way that stays within the lore of the game itself, because one of the big things with climbing is Assassin's Creed, it's like, okay, we're going to follow the yellow brick road or whatever. But by letting Aloy use her focus device, they are still pointing out the things you can climb, but they're doing it in such a way that it feels like it meshes with the story at large, and it's not just a glaring yellow sign saying climb here.
Right. That's what I had. I had an issue with the updated Tomb Raider games because they had the brightly painted walls. I mean, the first Horizon Zero Dawn had the brightly painted walls and places that's like, this is climbable.
Right.
And I also am starting to have a pretty big problem with Assassin's Creed, which there's not enough space put between those games anyway to
they're really just pumping them out
to make any sort of significant difference to play style and gaming mechanics. But everything is climbable in the Assassin's Creed games now. Like the only thing that's not climbable is the obvious things like ice like you can't climb ice. And it's
Right,
like,
right,
okay, I
right.
get that. But like so many other things like sheer rock faces, sides, like just sides of buildings that like have no like chinks in them at all. You can just climb them. And that's,
Right.
you know, with
Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
right. The
Exactly.
difference between those games and Forbidden West is that there are specific paths that
Mhm.
are climbable and that you can take, only there are multiple ways to go about climbing them,
Right,
and there are multiple paths to get to one specific area or, you know, to an objective.
right.
And I really like that. So it's not like you can just like pick a side of a mountain and then just press on upwards and eventually you'll get there. You actually have to think and plan out your path to get up there, whether it
Right,
be using their new grappling hook or using your focus to find a climbable path on the rock face.
right.
Um, any number of those things. Like they still have the brightly colored ropes in certain areas, but in areas where it makes sense to have them, which is close to encampments or they're
Right.
already known hunting paths, I like that they eliminated a lot of that, because in the
Yeah.
first game they had that just, but it was everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and so along with the climbing mechanics, basically what this game did really well is give Aloy different options to be able to traverse the terrain.
Right.
One of those is she gets a new tool pretty early on called the pullcaster, which is a grappling hook. So
Right.
it's like if she can't climb areas, she can use this pullcaster to be able to get to areas she wouldn't otherwise be able to get to.
Right. I have to say the animation of the pullcaster though looks like it hurts a lot. I don't know what they were, because like I understand they're like they borrowed that specifically off of the Batman Arkham
Arkham
games,
style, yeah.
but when she jumps onto the pullcaster, she'll like hit a rock face with her, like just like slam her face into a rock face
Yeah.
as she like is continuing to go up into, you know, onto the cliffside. And sometimes there are some times where she just knocks into the wall and I'm like,
Ow. So
ah,
maybe for the
realistic,
third
like
one, if there's a third one, maybe soften the landing a little bit,
right,
Guerrilla Games.
realistic, but also very painful looking.
Right.
I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know if this is what you were going for, the realism of actually like scraping off half your body when being pulled up by a machine onto a cliff face, but
Yeah, exactly.
that was
Um,
the one thing. I'm glad that they got that, you know, that you get that early on in the game. Um, one thing that I did like about this game a lot is that you don't get all the special tools at once. They
spread 'em
space
out.
them out for you
Yeah.
to get as you advance through the game. Um, that being said, they're not too far apart as to make the game too hard.
Right.
Another one of the tools that you do get is a glider,
Yeah, the Shieldwing
um,
glider. Yeah.
which
Which
I
is great. It's like now
absolutely
you've
love.
gotten up the mountain. Now let's get you down, but let's
Right.
get you down the scenic way.
Right. One of the bigger problems that I had with Horizon Zero Dawn is, well, first of all, with the climbing mechanics, there really weren't any unless you either climbed up the colorful rock faces and then the colorful ropes, or you just spammed the jump button.
Oh, that's what
And
I did. I totally was button mashing. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, let's go up and button mash. Yeah.
yeah, button mash. But once you got up to a high place, you also had to get off the goddamn thing. And
Right.
I found myself dying more times
Oh
trying
man.
to quickly retrace my steps back down a mountain
Yeah.
or like a cliff face because I was just too impatient to get down. So the
Right.
glider, absolutely lovely. Or like say like you needed, or say like I used to also fast travel a lot off of high places, which, you know, you use your fast travel kits
Hmm.
up that way. And also it just seems kind of like a break in the game because you have to then wait for the game to reload into a new
Right.
location. This way, if you just want to get to the bottom of the mountain, you can just glide there.
Yeah.
And it also shows off a lot more of the game map as
Yeah.
well. You know, it's
Yeah.
visually appealing and it's also mechanically appealing as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and speaking of fast travel, that's another thing they made an update to, is they've made it a lot more user friendly.
Yes, thank God. Like I remember in the first game, like you had to work for the privilege to fast travel.
Man, I never had, and like you couldn't, it was so hard to get the components to try and make it if you wanted to
Yes,
do that. And you're just like, okay, well, I'm like, well, now it's Skyrim. Now I'm just going to be running across this whole
like
world.
exactly, like gathering wood, hunting little critters, all
Hmm.
that kind of stuff, like just to get enough. And then also, they don't differentiate between travel packs anymore either. They used to have the small travel pack, which would only get you a certain amount of distance. And then they'd have the large travel pack, which you could basically cross the continent on.
Right.
This, it doesn't matter. And then also at I can't remember if this is something that you could have done in Zero Dawn as well, but I still appreciate it that if you're at a fire, if you're at an encampment, then you can travel from the fire pit freely. You don't have to use a fast travel kit in order to
Right.
travel if you're at a campfire, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And you had previously mentioned, you had developed, a play style in
yeah,
Zero Dawn, and you were able to kind of transition that over into Forbidden West. But that's another thing they made updates to. It's not the same level system. So,
mm-mm,
they
no.
have more intuitive, more perk heavy skill trees, added a couple new things to that, and made it a lot more manageable.
Yeah, they have. Okay, so this one has been literally ripped from Assassin's Creed,
Yeah.
which is fine. I don't mind people borrowing simple things like game mechanics to that are smart, that make things a little bit easier or, more fun for the game.
Yeah.
And this one you can with the skill tree, you can also earn what's called valor skills, which you can equip one at a time,
Hmm.
and it's either like a like a skill that ups your ability to override machines or make your elemental build up stronger, or to be better at melee, or
Yeah.
you can choose these different skills, like these valor skills, and those are the bigger items on the skill tree that you can
Right.
buy with your skill points. And you can equip those, then you can use them during combat
Yeah.
situations. And that is I really appreciated that as an
Yeah.
addition. It makes taking down certain larger machines a lot easier. You can
Yeah.
also clear out encampments a lot easier with that. And you can also, and it's a little bit more, it feels a little bit more personalized than the first game, which is
Yeah.
just it, which was literally
Yeah.
just a skill tree
Right.
that,
Well, and now
you
they've
just
they've
leveled up.
yeah, and now they've tied the tools and the skills into the narrative,
Also,
as
yes.
opposed to just being like, oh, I'm gonna pick this now.
Yeah, also, yes. I find Assassin's Creed, the only reason why I mention it is because there's a lot of crossover
Yeah.
between the good things that Assassin's Creed does and the good things that this game
Hmm.
borrows from Assassin's Creed. Um, and so Assassin's Creed, you can kind of just grab skills as you want, and their skill trees are extensive,
Hmm.
and they're like it's mind-boggling, because once you've filled up what is already a huge skill tree,
Right.
another branch will open up, and then
Right. And you're
another
like,
branch
come
will open
on.
up.
Yeah.
And you can basically make your character like god tier level invincible.
Yeah.
And I don't really appreciate that because it makes the game too easy. Um, Whereas, Aloy is, I mean, the characters in Assassin's Creed are also not as iconic as Aloy. They're
Yeah.
not as well fleshed out. Like Eivor is kind of like, the everyman or the everywoman, and,
Yeah.
just like the tough brawler character. Whereas Aloy, there's a lot more complexities
There
in
really
her
is.
character. So it doesn't really make sense to kind of like have her be like a one shot kill type of character, like unless it's like a smaller machine or something like that. Whereas like in Assassin's Creed, you can just be a one-shot kill with almost everything in the game if
exactly.
you
And you're
play
like,
it
well,
enough.
right. And you know, and obviously, you know, again, going with the making the sequel still interesting, they upgrade her weapons as well. Like we've got,
Yeah.
you know, some new weapons to deal with, we've got new ammunition to deal with, which is really nice.
Yeah, the purge water I thought was interesting. I haven't reached a point to where if there are other things with the purge water other than the traps, like if there's arrows or a tripwire, I haven't seen that yet. But it makes it interesting, like if one of, you know, if the machine that you're dealing with is mainly weak to purge water, like then you're kind of like, you're kind you know, you're kind of pigeonholed into figuring out a way to use the traps. Because there's one thing that I do actually really appreciate about the game, like it's both frustrating but also in a way that you find like challenging and you know, in a pleasant way, is that they really do stick to their elemental style of fighting. So like if one of the machines is only weak to purge water, that's the only thing that's really going to be useful to you, a useful tool for you to have. Otherwise you're just going to have to like keep hitting it until it dies and watching that HP bar just slowly and slowly to just like not even budge in some cases, like go down. So I do appreciate that. I also noticed, and this might just be a detail that is superfluous, but the mostly you get hunter bows and the sharp shot bows are really hard to find.
They're really scarce.
You get one after you finish a side quest that you might not even get to unless you are, you know, unless you're really into doing the side, like a lot of side quests alongside the main,
which they give you plenty of, so you're constantly revisiting different parts of the map.
Right. And that's another thing too with the tools that you get, is another thing too about revisiting parts of the map. I mean, I've played plenty of games where I've never had to go back, even open world games where I would grind and I'd reach a high enough level that I wouldn't have to go back to any part of the map, and I could just, you know, push on forwards until the end. This one I appreciate because the tool, like the special tools that you get or the special tools that you don't have, will prevent you from reaching certain parts of the map or certain objectives. So that you do have to, if you choose to, you don't have to, but if you choose to go back and like use the fire gleam tool on all the fire gleam that you couldn't explode previously, you could do that.
You can do that now.
So I appreciate that too. They're really good with pacing. The play style and the mechanics of this game, the addition to the mechanics, because Horizon Zero Dawn is already a very mechanic heavy game. It's already a very complex system that you have to learn. And Forbidden West starts off with that complex system still and builds on it. So I do appreciate that they don't hold your hand through it, but they do kind of guide you in a way that will get you used to all of the different stuff that they've added.
And another thing that I really like that they added to this game is obviously in the first game, Aloy's all on her own. Like, you know, after you know, her mentor dies, it's like nobody trusts her, nobody really wants anything to do with her. Well, now, you know, we've got companions to work with. Which obviously, which really helps make her feel more integrated into the various communities that populate the world, which I really appreciated that, because I was like, dude, how long is this chick gonna be on her own before, you know, she's gonna go crazy?
That's kind of the thing. Like Aloy's character, by itself is a very solitary character,
Yes.
of one that like I appreciate in this game. They kind of mark as her character flaw of always insisting that she could and should do everything on her own,
Yeah.
that she needs to carry the burdens of of the world on her back. Um Whereas this game, I think, really focuses in on the, building a team. Like, even if you can't play, even if they're still NPCs, they still have a good they still have a big effect on the story. They
Right.
still help Aloy out with, her problems. And I also think that um it does a service to the um it does a service to the storytelling as far as what Zero Dawn, the project Zero Dawn was supposed to be. Like, it was supposed to be shared with the world and all the people that would repopulate it. To have it still be Aloy to be the only person to wield that power, the
Right.
power that the Focus and Zero Dawn gave her, it doesn't really make sense unless they continue to want to make, like, to really prop her up as the chosen one,
Right.
sort of
Exactly.
narrative, which she still is,
Right.
arguably
She still
very,
is,
very
but
much so.
yeah.
But this kind of eases the burden of that a bit.
Right. Well, and also it helps with, because obviously one of the features of this game series is that the writing and the voice acting is just so incredible. And so this
Yeah.
gives her an opportunity to interact with characters and have more of a relationship with them, as opposed to one-off NPCs that she's just talking to gather information or to buy stuff from, which I think really helps enhance the game a lot more.
Yeah, there has been a lot of talk that there is too much dialogue in the game. Um, and I would actually point to Zero Dawn and say that it is literally, like, it is just as much dialogue there is just as much dialogue in Zero Dawn as there is in this game. And luckily for the player, you can choose to skip over a lot of the dialogue
Right.
options as well. Like, it gives you kind of like a dialogue tree,
Yeah.
where you can pick to know or not know more information. Like, you can just choose to ignore it and leave the conversation.
And see, I'm the exact opposite. I am the person that wants to hear every response. And yes, I will say I'm a voice actor who works in video games. So like,
Right.
I am very much invested in the voice acting of video games. But yeah, it does give you that option to skip.
Right. I usually, I don't skip things. Like, I really like, I live in stories of games. The mechanics and play style and all of that, I mean, that's fun for me, but it's not the reason why I play games. Like, I really like story.
I mean, I've definitely played games on story mode because I'm like, man, I just want to hear what this game is about, as opposed to like, God damn it, I've died for the 10th time on this one fucking boss and now I'm just mad.
Yeah, like, I like a healthy mix of both, but I would definitely say that I do lean towards more of a story oriented game. And then I'll usually play on normal the first go around. I think for this game, actually, I am playing on difficult. But that's because I already know so much of the mechanics of
you're
Zero Dawn that I'm very comfortable with just being able to feel like I won't be bogged down a lot by by difficulty mode settings in this one. But usually if I'm going to play a game, I'll play it as intended on normal the first go around, and then I'll ramp up from there for my second playthrough, just so that I can have an uninhibited experience with the story. Swimming.
I was gonna say, like, two more things to touch on, I think, before we're done here, is definitely one is the underwater exploration, and then we'll dive in real quickly into what the improvements they made for human enemies. So the underwater exploration, I mean, we've now got the glider that lets you see so much of the area, like, from above, but now we get to go below and we get new creatures and new monsters, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it definitely does take you to different levels of experience. Like, you can now master the air, you can now master the land, and now you can master the sea. We also didn't mention, but later you'll learn how to, spoilers, I guess, not like this hasn't all been spoilers, but later you will learn how to ride the flying machines, so that, you know, you can literally master the air. I think it's the Sunhawks, or I don't remember what it is, or the Stormbirds, either one, you learn how to ride those. But the underwater mechanics, which I would argue were non-existent in the first game, there wasn't enough there weren't bodies of water that were deep enough that you could
you got to swim across a river and
right, or a lake, or you know, and there really wasn't anything down there that was any important. Whereas this one, you actually have full-on underwater levels, a la the third Tomb Raider, the reboot. I think it's that one's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, where you can actually, you know, go and explore. And you have to also, again, with the special tools, you have to build up to be able to do that. You in one of the quests, you help an inventor, or a performer inventor, create a diving component in which you can, it's basically a rebreather. And then, you know, you can go underwater at leisure and explore things down there. But that's another layer and level of the map that you can access, that, you know, when you're starting off playing it, you couldn't otherwise access it, which is nice, because again, you don't want a game that you can just blow through, especially an open world game. You want to have some challenges and things to work up to.
And just one more thing real quick before we wrap up, I wanted to point out is I think they also, you know, one of the criticisms from the first game was that human enemies were just like a waste of time. Like, they were super easy. It was almost silly fighting them.
Headshots.
Exactly. Guerrilla Games did a massive improvement on their human enemies. And, you know, now they can even mount tamed machines and face off against Aloy. So I think it's really, it's a testament to the fact that they, for all of these, you know, for this game, were really listening to player feedback when they developed Zero Dawn, because this was just another example of, you know, minor tweaks that made a huge difference in this sequel.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They definitely were very well edited on what they chose to add, what they chose to leave the same, which is very good, to have a critical eye for that sort of thing, or else you get, you know, kind of the smorgasbord. You get like, choose from everything and anything that you want. And a lot of the times that just becomes boring, because then you become the god tier character that is, you know, the one-shot wonder.
Like, pew, 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 and you're done.
And you're done. With the human enemies for this one, they actually they have armor this time.
You can't just kill them with a headshot.
Yeah, you can't just go for the headshot for a lot of them. You know, you still have your regular like encampment boss. So like, if you're going to a rebel camp, you have to like take down the boss. But you can also, you don't have to clear out the whole camp on the first go around. If you take out the boss, then, you know, you're kind of groovy on that. The camp won't be yours, but you will be able to kind of clear that and get what you need from it. But yeah, they definitely did work a lot more on the human enemies in this one. And that's not even mentioning the Zeniths, which, you know, those are a whole other, you know, barrel of monkeys. You have to do a lot of other special things in order to be able to defeat them. But yeah, it's not just machines anymore that are complex, that are complex bosses to take down, which I do appreciate. Because a lot of the times, and especially most of the time, the machines are not like, you know, they're not the main enemy. You know, they're the main things that you fight, but like storyline wise, they're not like your main enemy. In fact, they, you know, there's what's keeping the world alive. So it makes sense to focus more on making the human enemies a bit harder.
Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Those are our thoughts on the mechanics of Horizon Zero Dawn. Of course, let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Yeah,
absolutely. Please help us out, like, subscribe, do all the things. We would really appreciate it. It helps out our channel. And we hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, guys. Bye.